Hello and welcome to the Uncut podcast. And apologies for the show being a little bit um, absent, we'll say, in the past couple of months. But stay around to the end of the show, and there's news about what's going to be happening going forward with Uncut. But until then, we got a normal podcast to get out of the way. So, for this week's episode, I have been joined by Graham. Hello there,
Hello.
Kat,
Hello.
and Simon.
Hey, hey.
Before we get into who the podcast is about, which if you look at the line, it probably says who it is, and the whole drama of it is completely useless on the internet. But how are you all? How are you all today? The past while, how have you been? Even
Yeah, I'm still in festival season because apparently it never ends. So out of Fright Fest into Fantastic Fest into Grimfest, Film Quest, Celluloid, Mayhem, everything. Yeah, so just busy.
is there any in December? I feel like that's one
Soho.
month.
There's obviously there's Soho Horror in person towards the end of November, and then the following week, Mitch Harrod also does a virtual festival which is open to everybody, which is great because all the other festivals stopped doing that after the pandemic. But Soho is still flying that flag, and it's always pretty much a 70-80% different lineup. So if you go to the in-person one, you get free access to the virtual one, but you get a load more goodies. So yeah, that's in December, and then we're back around to Sundance, into Glasgow, into South by, and yeah, I always thought there was a break, but apparently there's not.
There is also another one in London coming up, which I'm helping organise, funnily enough, the London International Fantastic Film Festival, with our occasional colleague, Blake Simons. So if anybody is in London, I believe it's the first few days of December, starting on the Thursday the 1st of December, I believe. Yeah, come along to that. We have not got anything set in stone yet, but yeah, sorry, just had to plug that in there.
Yeah.
Well, while we're plugging, I guess.
Plugs at the beginning. What?
I've recently completed a short film made up of archive footage from the last century called Song of the Suburbs, about the history of British suburbia. And that's going out across the country at various locations. I think when will this podcast go out, do we think, Rob?
I think this weekend.
Okay, yeah. So you'll be able to catch it at Folkestone Documentary Festival on weekend starting 24th of October. If you're in London on that same day, it's showing at the Warrington Runcorn Newtown Development Plan gig on that night. And there's other dates, including some in the north, that we're planning out that I'll be able to give you a date for when we set them.
In the north, we don't do film stuff in the north, Graham.
Well, we do now.
Okay, so this week it's about a big name, but a big name with a very limited filmography. It's Alex Garland. Now, here's the funny thing. Usually at this point, I just say where have people heard of him, but he's had so many sort of disparate careers. It's where did you sort of hitch onto him, and which career you discovered first, really, isn't it? So, Graham, we'll go in the order that the people arrived in. So, where did you first hear about Alex Garland?
Well, I was aware of his career as a novelist, even though I never read any of his books, but I certainly pretended I did when I was a teenager. And then I became aware of him when 28 Days Later came out, which he wrote the script for, and just sort of followed what he was doing ever since, really. I don't know anything about his video game career because I'm not a gamer, but...
Never knew he had that career.
Okay. Yeah, he writes for video games as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought you meant he was like a developer or something. Okay.
Or a Twitch streamer. Was that
everybody is these days, Graham. Everybody. Oh, you finished? Not just that awkward silence.
Yeah, I'm keeping my powder dry on in terms of film career.
So, Kat, same question.
Similar to Graham, I was aware of his work as a writer, and it was guess the stuff that he was doing film-wise with Danny Boyle. I think Sunshine was the first thing to me that stood out as something that was really like, oh, I like what this guy's doing. And then kind of from then I've followed on. So like Dread and obviously the films that we're here to talk about today. So yeah, again,
Yeah,
did not that he wrote for video games, but maybe that's something to look into in the future.
that's hotly debated to be his debut, isn't it? Did he direct Dread or didn't he?
Unofficially, I
Was
believe. I
Yes,
think it was
yeah,
more of a post-production thing where he brought the entire thing together after Pete Travis had shot the whole thing, but then subsequently walked away from it. So I believe, although it's unofficial, yeah, a lot of the people on set have said that it should be classified as his directorial debut, even though he was mainly a producer on set and then a director off. So
he wears many hats.
he does.
Gotta
He
be
does
said.
Yeah, I
indeed.
mean, it would make sense. I did. He did an appearance at Showmasters London Film and Comic Con in the lead up to Dread, and on the panel it was Carl Urban and Alex Garland, and one would assume that a director would be present rather than kind of like a writer producer type. But so yeah, that kind of tracks. That this is by the time the film's out, he's kind of become the face of the film.
It's bizarre though. Like I don't know why you would want to creatively divorce yourself from that movie. I know it didn't do particularly well, but that's a movie. That's a proper beautiful adaptation of the comic. And I don't really know what else is worth pointing out in Pete Travis's filmography.
I
Maybe
mean,
maybe Vantage Point. Did anybody see
maybe
Vantage Point?
we might feel differently about it, I guess, if we'd seen the first cut. I think,
Fair.
Yeah.
yeah.
Release the Travis cut.
Well, there's a hashtag for everything now. So yeah, Simon, yourself, you seem a bit
Um,
more into his stuff, citing that
yeah,
sort of thing.
yeah. I mean, I think I first, well, I was aware of him through my dad, who was a big fan of the Tesseract, and which was, I believe, was that his debut novel? I think that was the one that my dad really really enjoyed, um, and it always had this like sort of aura around it of being like a cool novel, you know. And then of course, I think I just became more aware of him as like a kind of like the right hand man of Danny Boyle. I think the first thing that I watched that he wrote was probably Sunshine, and then 28 Days Later, and then I got into uh, his film career after that. Never Let Me Go is still a blind spot for me.
I forgot
So
Never Let Me Go, and I adore that film.
yeah,
Was that him?
That
Am I
was
thinking?
he
he
wrote
he
that.
wrote the
Yeah,
screenplay. Yeah,
Oh, okay, because that was
yeah.
Mark Romanek, I
Mark
think.
Romanek. Yeah,
hmm
Yeah,
But
that's a
but yes, so
horribly brutal film. Oh,
I'll be sure to get round to it.
I remember walking out of that, and there was a couple that said, "Oh, that was the worst film I've ever seen." And I know it's like a big statement to people who say stuff like that, but there's a little voice in my head saying, "If that's the best thing they've ever seen, they have good experience of movies."
Mm,
It's never that way, though, is it?
No.
no,
It's just
no.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you finished? Okay.
Mhm.
So we've got three movies that we're going to talk about, and it makes sense to do them chronologically. And even if you weren't, they're so very different from one another that whatever order you put them in, it doesn't really make head nor hide, really. So those movies are 2015's Ex Machina, 2022's highly divisive Men, which that poked a lot of people the wrong way, didn't it? And Civil War from this year, which means the ones that we've left out are, I can't remember the year, I think it was 2017 Annihilation. I think that,
2018. Yes. Very close.
nearly.
Yeah.
And this past year's Civil War, no, and Warfare,
Warfare.
sorry, which he co directed. Okay, so Ex Machina. Who wants to take a stab at synopsizing that fella?
I can if you
Well,
want.
okay.
Please.
So Ex Machina, kind of a psychological sci-fi thriller about a young programmer played by Donald Gleason called Caleb, who wins a lottery in his workplace. So he works for a search engine company called Blue Book. And the prize of this lottery is to go to the retreat of the billionaire CEO of the company, Nathan, who lives, uh, assuming someplace in Scandinavia, because it is spectacular and beautiful and uh, 2 hours away from anything else. And it's just him with Nathan in the property. I should have said Nathan is played by Oscar Isaac, and they want to perform what is most commonly known, although it doesn't necessarily fit into that category, as a Turing test. So to uh, perform a test with a computer to figure out if they are indeed actually talking to a computer or if they believe that they're talking to a person or an artificial intelligence. That artificial intelligence is in the form of Ava, who's this android who lives in the basement, played by Alicia Vikander. And yeah, this little sort of week break for Caleb becomes, uh, you know, both
Bad.
mentally and physically torturous. Bad, yes, Graham. that's
Yes.
that's a much better and sharper way of putting it.
Kat, what are your feelings this time round, at least, with Ex Machina?
I remember seeing it the first time I went to a press screening. I mean, I was raised on the Terminator film, so I'm a big sci-fi person, particularly to do with AI. And I remember being like wowed by it the first time. This time, I think it does hit differently because obviously our relationships with AI particularly has changed over what the last 10 years. So I don't know. I think when I first watched it, I thought, oh my God, this is terrifying. This is like Terminator come to life. Ava is, she's going to be the end of us all. And now it's like, oh yeah, but she's kind of stuck on the island, or she just needs a helicopter. Obviously, I feel that AI has become, much more of a threat outside of being trapped in an android body. So yeah, I don't know if it quite hit in the same way for me. But I do enjoy that Ava just spends the whole film manipulating men because quite a lot of men are quite stupid, and all they need is a pretty face, and that's just personified beautifully in this film.
Hmm. I mean, I pretty much agree with the whole AI thing. It does play completely differently.
Mm.
Much to the sense of it's become a different movie, really, in the, 10 years since it was released.
Mm.
Mhm.
It's fun, that. Graham, yourself.
It's funny because you have to keep reminding yourself every time they say AI that they're not talking about what people are talking about when they talk about AI now, which is basically Babel fish, only a bit faster. No, they're talking about an actual thinking, feeling machine.
Mm.
It's funny this. I remember liking this, but having a couple of problems with it when it came out. I think what's good about it is still good. Mostly the effects, where this famously won Best Special Effects at the Oscars, a category that's always dominated by $200 million blockbusters. And this time they just looked at this little 14, 15 million film and went, oh no, they know what they're doing and they've used every effect beautifully. The actual, like, physical embodiment of Ava is uncanny. You can't believe that it's not real. I think out of all of the films we're watching today, and maybe out of all of his directorial efforts, this is the one where if you said to me, this is a novelist making a film, I'd be like, yeah,
Mm.
that tracks.
Mhm.
It is very
Mm.
conversation based, which I don't necessarily mind. A lot of those conversations are about the underpinning ideas of the film, which I would prefer to see dramatized a bit more, and there was a slight sense that he is reaching for big capital M moments like the disco dancing scene just to sort of break this up and throw some kind of a curveball into it. I still think that holds it back somewhat, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd hate to
Interesting.
agree. It's weird the time as well with that sort of thing. Because I remember at the time there was this big sort of the disco scene was seen as weird and wild, and this sort of like out of the blue moment, and people were talking about it for ages, and it almost became a meme, really, didn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And you watch it back now, and he just dances for a bit.
I think that's a really good twist though in that scene. Is that, like, okay, you could probably guess that Kyoko is an android from
Mm.
how little agency she has in the film up to that point. But I just
Yeah.
think the way that that whole idea is conveyed is very freaky and funny at, at the same time, and that is a great tune because we all like to get down on Saturday night, do we not?
Yeah, even
Who
robots.
among us? Who among us does not?
Yeah.
I think that this is by far my favorite of Alex Garland's films, and I think it is
Oh
because
wow.
it constantly changes in my mind. I checked my letterbox and I'd only seen it last year, so I think they played it in the IMAX just before um, Civil War came out. So that was a nice treat to see it like projected
Mm.
that big and that loud, and because it's like such a quiet film as well, you become really really tuned to like the ambience and like the tiny sort of like little clicks and whirs and hums of Ava like the whole time, which I think you can lose a lot if you're just watching it at home.
Mm.
Um, and I think that is a shame in a way that like it has to be played that loud in order to have that effect. But it is just that like ever so slight little thing that pushes Ava away from you because like even though like yes on paper it's kind of cool that Ava gets one over on the people who've exploited her from like the beginning of her own creation, but at the same time is there a level of sanctity that an AI has? Like, is it more or less than us? Is it
Mm.
is it less because we've created it? Is it less because she's basically an auto-generated? Um, so there's a point where Nathan points out to Caleb that he generated her from her his pornography profile. So it's like his perfect woman, and it's like creating a woman in the image of an object, basically.
Mm.
Um, and it's just all these things where your sympathies are constantly being played with in a way that I think is provocative, and I think is possibly the most provocative of Alex Garland's films because it's 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 all of the answers at once instead of something like Men, which I think is none of the answers.
I don't know
But we'll
about
get on
that,
to that.
but
We'll get on to
yeah,
that. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful film. I'm consistently gripped by it. I think its sense of place and location is absolutely fantastic. I believe you can stay in that location
Mm.
as an Airbnb. I think it's mega expensive, but yeah, a lot of like the living room and the dining room facing out over the river. I think that's all one location that you can actually stay in. So that's a bucket list thing. If I ever if I ever earn that much money, maybe go to the Ex Machina hotel.
hmm,
But yeah, I really think this is a special movie and is aging better than most movies have the good grace to, particularly
yeah.
even like in the last 2 weeks. Has anyone been following the Tilly Norwood story?
Mm. Yes.
So for anyone that hasn't, um, Tilly Norwood is basically an AI creation, who the company that owns the image of Tilly Norwood is basically trying to sell to acting agents as a film star to star in their movies, which has obviously been met with a tremendous amount of controversy, because A, who wants that? B, it's not exactly taking jobs away from people, but it's an experiment
Yeah.
that kind of doesn't need to be done. And
Just in
I
case.
think Ava is kind of similar in a few ways, because she is generated from, she's filtered in a way that like an actual human being is not.
Well, just in case anyone thinks Ex Machina's like focus on how men would automatically sexualize AI creations, in case anyone thinks that's unrealistic, there was a gut-wrenching column that went around the internet from Barry Weiss's The Free Press outlet, in which a male journalist said that one of the pluses of Tilly Norwood is that, and I quote, "If you want to see a virgin on the big screen, she's your best chance."
No.
Good
Sorry
lord.
for making everyone heave, but that's the state we're in now.
Bravo, Alex Garland, bravo. You saw it coming.
Yeah, I'm not sure myself really where I stand. I do like it a great deal, but it's so finely balanced with sort of the technological considerations of it. Because at the one hand, it's about a reclusive billionaire who uses women as his playthings, and one's literally a slave. Who there's a scene where some wine's dropped by Kyoko, I think it was the name of
Kyoko, yeah. Mm-hmm.
and the way he treated it, and the sequence throughout it where it shows the previous models, and there's the constant lines of what is it? Will you let me leave? Or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
And she ends
And
up
then,
basically smashing her arms to pieces trying to get out.
yeah, and then there's Domhnall Gleeson's character, who it's another side of masculinity, really, who thinks he's helping, but he's
The
played
nice guy,
completely.
quote
Yeah,
unquote.
but at the same time, it's also conceptually quite neat and clever. So I don't really know where I stand with it. Really, it has ideas, but I'm unsure about it. It's aged beautifully, but I'm not sure what it's aged into. Really.
I mean, if you watch this film again in 2 years, it'll read completely differently.
Yeah,
I can guarantee it.
I do remember thinking at the time, and I still think that one of its weaknesses is that Domhnall Gleeson, who I like very much, is sort of stuck in the least interesting role, while Vikander and Isaac do all of the fun stuff around him.
yeah. I mean, there's the idea that Kyoko is obviously a cyborg. Well, I think the least interesting character is Domhnall Gleeson, because anybody who's that interested in code has to be an android. I'm sorry. Sorry, coders.
That's the thing as well. It always sort of convinces me that like it might be like a Blade Runner situation where he might be an android like Deckard, but then I'm always unconvinced by the end. I think that's my main problem with it, is that it starts to entertain a twist that it just doesn't kind of sustain.
Yeah.
What's everybody else's read on that? Did you ever suspect that he was an android at any point?
Well, I think the thing is that his character thinks that he is, doesn't he? I think he's realizes he was kind of so taken in by Nathan that, maybe I'm not real, because he does the whole thing where he's cutting himself to kind of see to see what happens. So I think there's definitely an aspect of that. I mean, there's a lot in this film to peel apart. I mean, my partner is a coder, and he had a
I'm
thoroughly
sorry.
nice time with. I watched it.
I'm really sorry.
He he had, he had a great time because he studied physics and stuff. So like all of the conversations that Nathan and Caleb are having, he got really into, and then tried to explain to me and my mum, and we were just Ellie Sattler in Jurassic Park and just like, oh no. Um, but it's great because it is one of those. I think it's one of those films that kind of like your layman sci-fi fan can watch and be like, ooh, like maybe evil robot or bad man controlling robots and whatnot, but also it appeals to the nerds. It appeals to the, because so often films to do with like coding or hacking or whatever are just so horribly unrealistic, and the science is not remotely science. But this, they did their work. I think Adam Rutherford was one of the advisors on this, and I think as part of the Home Ent release, I myself and another couple of journalists like went and met with him, and he discussed at length his research, which was used in part to make the film, which was really interesting. They had a lot of like Ava faces, props from the film around, which was
Wow.
cool. But yeah, it's a film that's got a lot going on, and like we said, this is a film that you can, each time you watch it, you will get something different. Like I always say, I grew up on the Terminator. I love those films. I've seen them hundreds, if not thousands of times, but the message is kind of always the same. But with something like that, it's Ex Machina, you can go back and find something different and build out from that.
Yeah, there's a movie from a few years ago. I mean, I'm sorry to your husband. Yeah, I tried the
Fine.
code, and it was like looking at the Matrix. So I don't understand how that works. It's too much for me. But there was a movie a few years ago. I can't remember the name of it. I think it was one of Lance Henriksen's last movies, which was a similar
The
sort of.
Artifice Girl.
Yeah, I think that and this would make a really thoughtful double bill. Really, two very very good movies in a similar theme. But yeah, this is a funny one for me. I feel. I agree with everything Graham said as well. It does feel like an author's book, author's movie, in the sense of it could, or even just a playwright's movie. It could just as easily be a play with the divorce of the effects that it has. And I don't think much would change really as a stage sort of production. It's not. It's very cinematic and also super cinematic at the same time. It's so many conflicting things. It's an odd movie for me.
I think it would make a pretty bomb stage play, actually. That would be very good.
I would be seated, yes.
Yes. Any other thoughts before we wrap up on Ex Machina?
No, I think I'm just going to stick to my guns and say that, yeah, definitely. After rewatching 4 out of the 5 Alex Garland films in the last week, certainly my favorite.
He has got a very high standard. I will give him that. So I don't think he's had any real bad movies. I mean, as an author, maybe The Beach divides opinion very badly on the negative side, but
Well, even Danny Boyle doesn't really like that one, does he?
Yes, yeah.
no, he's an odd man, though. And just it's one of those things that sort of blew me mind. I didn't realize how old he was and how old he was when he broke through. I think he's over 70 now, and I was like, that can't be right. But no.
Yeah, I mean,
it's quite weird, isn't it?
he got his start with Alan Clark at the BBC because
Doing Elephant, yeah.
exactly, yeah. You see his name on that, and it's like, oh wow, okay, so you had a career before your career.
And it's very funny because if I was going to pick out like a British film that was the exact antithesis of Train Spotting, Elephant would be a pretty good choice, I reckon.
Yeah, I just find Danny Boyle very confusing for that fact. So we'll move on to 2022's Men. Who wants to take a stab at that? Because there's
I'll
two ways to
take
take this. Yeah.
I'll synopsize Men. So, Men stars the fantastic Jessie Buckley as Harper, a woman who is sort of grieving the death of her partner. So she decides to as you know, we do, into the middle of nowhere English countryside for a little bit of a little bit of sabbatical. But the men, all played by Rory Kinnear, just won't leave her alone. And as she desperately tries to find somebody, anybody to listen to her, which, spoiler, she's surrounded by men and she's a woman, it's not going to happen. Things get just really icky. I think is the only way I
Yeah.
can explain that final act.
I do feel it's also hugely misunderstood because there was a bad faith reception from from a lot of people who just basically said, "Oh, it's about not all men," and that's as deep as they really looked at it. But
My one criticism of the film is that I wish it was called literally anything else. I think if this film was called Village of the Rorys Kinnear, as it should have been, then people would be much more forgiving about it because they would have, firstly, they would have found out its themes by themselves, and secondly, it wouldn't be nailed to that one theme. Like, I think there are other things going on in here than just gender relations.
Mhm.
And it would be nice if it didn't have this big 3-letter title that just ties it to that theme completely, because I do think it deserves better. And I'm going to say it since Simon led off early with it. This is my favourite Alex Garland film.
Interesting.
Yes,
Very interesting.
not a view I expect anyone to share, but I remember sort of thinking it quite a while ago, after seeing Civil War, thinking, I wonder if Men's my favourite, and rewatching it for this podcast absolutely cemented it. I thought, yeah, this is great. I love this movie.
Very
So
interesting.
Simon, your feelings on this is a loaded sentence. Your feelings on men,
Oh.
just in
Oh, I
general.
love them. They're great. No, I used to really quite like this film. I remember it was the first film that I saw back at the cinema after the first ever time that I had COVID. So I managed to avoid COVID for like 2 years, and then it got me in 2022 when I finally emerged back out. First film I saw was Men, and yeah, it really kind of struck a chord for me, even though I found parts of it a little bit tiresome. I found the overall thesis or its lack of thesis a little bit overreaching. But I really, really enjoyed the performances. I think Rory Kinnear having the absolute time of his life. I mean, imagine getting that, like every single character on that script, and just going like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have some fun with
Well,
this.
at least he wasn't in blackface. Is the one saving grace because
Not in that village, Graham. Not in that village. Not the most diverse area, one would think.
no,
Um,
no,
but sorry, did I call you Graham there? I meant Rob.
you did, yeah. It's
Sorry.
okay.
Sorry,
Men,
excuse
I'm
me.
right. They're all look
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
same.
know they're all the same.
Person.
Especially if they're all from Middlesbrough. Sorry.
Oh,
Oh, shocker, shocker. No, anyway, yes. So I think on this rewatch, I liked it a lot less, and I'm not entirely sure why. I kind of find it a bit of an oddly shaped film. And
Hmm.
I think Garland doesn't do particularly well with flashbacks. I think one of the things that really lets him down with Annihilation is that he keeps sort of breaking the illusion of, this claustrophobic effect when they're in the zone, in the shimmer, you know. Um, and then with this as well, a lot of it is to do with how Harper's trauma is kind of being like weaved into her, you know, um, her experiences, whether they are all a nightmare or not. You know, I think I think it kind of struggles to bring together the structure and the ideas, and I think there's a lot of cool stuff in there. I think the hand through the letterbox and the subsequent splitting of the hand is an astonishingly evocative horror image,
Yes.
and I think hats off to him for the unending birth scene at the end. just one birth after another.
Hmm.
But I don't know. There's just something about it that doesn't like completely land as a whole for me. I began to watch the featurette on the Blu-ray, um, and basically Alex Garland opens with the idea of like, oh well, I was writing a screenplay about the Green Man 20 years ago, and I was really looking for a project to put this in, and I think it definitely feels like the sort of production that it's something that he needs to get out of his system. It's like a really grand exercise. And of course, with it being made during the pandemic, it was probably a lot easier to do because you're essentially just working with two actors. That's quite easy to bubble with. You know what I mean? But I think, I don't know, an interesting film, but I don't think I was in the mood for it the other night. It just didn't fully
Okay.
land for me this time.
Kat, your feelings on? Again, I'm not going to say it because it's a weird sentence.
I mean, we don't let's not ask Kat what Kat's opinion of Men is, because we do that's a completely different podcast. But like Men, the film, I did not like Annihilation at all. I just really struggled with it. I read the book that it was based on and didn't mind the book, but I just felt there was some disconnect with the film. So I went into having like really liked Ex Machina than not liking Annihilation. I kind of went into this one with a bit of like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to sit with this one. But I liked it. I think although it's directed by a man, it did capture life as a woman quite well. There are several of Kinnear's personalities that I have met and interacted with in my life. Some of them to a shockingly authentic degree. And if I was certain people, I'd maybe be, asking Rory Kinnear for some money for, having used me uh, as inspiration. Um, and one of the things I do enjoy about Rory's performance is that so many people that I know that saw it didn't realize that they were all played by him. I mean, I find that hard to believe when you get to like the school child, because that some of
Yes.
that like face grafting CG is not the smoothest. But yeah, I know people that were like, "What was he? Oh, I didn't know. Or I thought he played a couple of them. I didn't realize like he played all of them." So I think that the film does a great job. The performances do a great job at the housing and inhabiting all these different men. But like, the thing for me that really stands out is the technical bit, the parts of this film. The landscape looks beautiful. When
Yeah.
she's going for the walk in the countryside, the whole tunnel sequence, the whole
Mm-hmm.
bit with the echo where she's looking at the sound. I rewatched this with my 6-month-old kitten, and he loved it because of all the country sounds. I mean, he did run away when there was a fox barking. He heard the fox and was like, "I'm out of here." But all of the sounds of nature, so just the sound design and the way that the film looks is stunning. And yeah, the never ending birth sequence. I'm a horror journalist by trade, and I like to think I've got quite a tough skin, quite robust. Since birthing a human, it turns out that I'm not a fan of seeing birth sequences in films. And when I was sat in the cinema, I thought I'm going to be sick. And he just never stopped giving birth. And yeah, I'm probably going to be sick. I mean, I did have quite a lot of ice cream during the film, so that was probably. But I watched it today and was like, "That's fine. It's fine. I'm cured." But it was quite close to me having given birth, and I was one of those pregnant women that did not watch One Born Every Minute. I did not know. I did not want to know what was going to happen. I was very much like, "It's going to happen. It's too late now. I don't need to scare myself with what's
You're
coming."
going to cross that bridge when you come to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I interviewed Lee Wannell, and I kind of likened it to because he asked how I was feeling, and I kind of likened it to when you're on a plane and you hit really bad turbulence. There's nothing you can do. If the plane's going down, the plane's going down. It's very much like it's gonna come out. But
Okay.
since I've had her, if there's a birthing sequence, I'm like, nope, I didn't do that. That's not what happened. I just completely. I mean, they say that women forget, and I have properly repressed it. And then when I'm then faced with it, I'm just like, nope, that she was inside of me, and then she was outside of me, just like that. I don't know
Magic.
how she got from A to B. Yeah, exactly. So then seeing it not once, not twice, but many times in Men it was a very traumatic experience for me. So yeah,
Fair
I
enough.
enjoyed the journey that the film took me on more than what it was trying to do or say.
I feel that sequence is kind of very evocative of who he is as a storyteller as well. I don't know anybody who will have like a horners to really do a scene like that, or what he would go on to later do in 28 years later. It's a hugely fearless writer, Alex Garland,
Yeah.
and the infinite birthing sequences is that it's probably its most disturbing, I guess.
It reminded me, my first association when I saw it in the cinema, it reminded me of Gozu by Takashi Miike. And how many times do you get to sit in your local multiplex and watch a film that reminds you of Takashi Miike? Not enough, I would say.
It's one of those scenes where I'd be really curious to see what level of walkouts it got. Because some people are very queasy, and they'll see that and they'll, oh no, I'm done, I'm out of here. Even if it's like basically finished at that point, be curious. Yeah.
I'm gonna reload and just sort of push the case for this a bit because I know a lot of my friends really, really hate this movie, and I just want to just want to establish why they're wrong. First, I think what I was sort of circling around a bit with Ex Machina is that I think that Garland's weakness as a screenwriter is exposition. I think there is often too much exposition in both his own films and his films for other writers. Whereas with Men, I mean, Simon said, is it a dream? Is it all in her head? And it's like, well, by the time the child Rory Kinnear turns up, I think you're sort of on board with the idea that this is a surrealist film. There is no level of reality. It's not just a village where there's a very shallow gene pool.
Although
So
that
I
is
think,
true too. But
yeah, that's probably true
Just
as
look at
well.
Jeffrey.
Yeah. But the fact that it is so overtly dream logic in its structure means that he just junks all that and makes it a full-on experience. And I think it's great that I completely agree with Kat. I think it's a beautiful looking film. I think the music by Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow, the latter of whom was in Portishead, is phenomenal. Such a great soundtrack. And I like the
so
way that
diverse
it.
as well. Just on that, they also did the free jazz of like Free Fire as well. So they're
Oh wow!
very eclectic duo.
They're great. Yeah, they do. They don't get enough praise for doing really good soundtracks. I like the way that it sort of transitions between horror genres. It starts off as a folk horror film, and I think even though Simon said Garland started it 20 years ago as a folk horror film, I think by now he sort of knows, okay, that's in the air. You don't have to hammer that home. You have that gorgeous sort of shot of the font with the green man on one side and the Sheila Nagig on the other side. And it's like, yeah, point made. I think everyone knows what I'm driving at here. And then it becomes a slasher film for a bit in the middle. It ends up as a very, very slimy body horror film. I admire how free ranging it is in what seems like a very limited sort of premise. And I think, like all great folk horror films, it has a strong sense of the present as well as the past. The pub that's full of Rory Kinnears with the barmaid's green king shirt is like, oh yeah, I think I've been in this place. The first Rory Kinnear we see is a guy called Jeffrey, and he is the most Jeffrey man who ever lived. He's like the platonic ideal of a Jeffrey, and everything he says is so funny and so precisely observed. Yeah, I remember enjoying it a lot. I think I was talked into the idea that I was wrong when I spoke to all my friends about it. But no, watch it a second time. Absolutely love this movie.
I think I could watch it again next year and have a completely different read on it, to be honest. I think just because I don't think it particularly sits well alongside Annihilation or Ex Machina. It is comfortably its own little sort of weird curio.
Yes, definitely.
I've just thought of a different title, guys. Are you ready for it?
Go on.
The League of Gentlemen. I think this might have been kicking around in the back of my head as well, because I watched it with my partner a couple of years ago, the first rewatch, and she was just like, shouldn't have been Rory Kinnear, should have been Reece Shearsmith. But
somebody on this podcast,
there's
I think they'd be okay with that. His number one fan. Yeah, she'd be very okay with that. Yeah. Any thoughts left on Men? It's such a suggestive way to word things, just that title.
On the film, Men, you mean
yeah,
that,
on the movie,
yes,
Men,
okay,
yes.
yes.
Not half of the human species. No.
I think it does pair well, however, with what you were saying there about 28 years later, and about kind of like the naked masculinity of old Britain, old Britannia, and just the way that it's been coded as a sort of hostile presence. I think is quite powerful. I think it's conveyed a bit better in the world of 28 years later, but yeah, I don't know. I acknowledge that I might be wrong on this.
There's so many subtext to it. Like the countryside is hostile to city folk. That is true. Yes, and it's in this movie. There's just so much going on. There's theological stuff as well about Christianity and paganism, which is through there. But you have to really dig in the reeds for this stuff. I think at the end of the day, look, what it is and what it's about and what it evolves into, a deeply disturbing thing, but it's always fun. It's odd that it manages that. I think it's almost too fine of a balance to it come out as a fun movie too, I feel.
I think one of the things that we're kind of also talking about when we talk about Alex Garland's career, and particularly in these three films, is we're also talking about the history of A24 as a production and distribution company. And this emerged just as that idea of quote unquote horrible phrase incoming elevated horror was starting to get a pushback. I think it dances quite well around the worst aspects of that. I think if your gripe with that movement of horror is that it's poor-faced, you'll be pleased at how satirical this is when it starts off and how tense it is when it gets into the middle stage section and how gonzo it is by the end. It has a lot of hedges against being a dull, worthy, theme-led horror.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts, Kat? Any closing thoughts on this one?
I think I'm just pleased that a rewatch, re-solidified myself as a strong stomach genre fan, because I was scared. I was scared that I'd been broken by childbirth, but it's okay. I'm fine. So I'm pleased. I'm pleased that I had to rewatch it. And also, we've unlocked a new film for the cat to watch. He had a very nice time until the fox. He had a lovely time.
Cat approved.
I mean, it's slightly healthier than the other cat whose first favorite film was Pet Cemetery. Like, I mean, I don't even want to get into what she was going through, but yeah, I feel like it's very much now you sit down here, Yoshi, and you watch this film, and you do not be like any of these men. You be a good man.
Okay. And that will take us to the third film, which is 2024's documentary, Civil War. Yeah.
So
who wants to take a stab at that one?
I'm left to synopsize this one, and I Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation has been elected president, and he's running for a third term. This has caused a civil war, which includes some of the most implausible team-ups this side of the first cut of Justice League, and it becomes a sort of a road movie through an America at war with Kirsten Dunst playing Lee, a photojournalist who's tagging along with her colleagues played by Wagner Moura and Stephen McKinley Henderson, as well as a young rookie photojournalist played by Callie Spaney, who idolises her but who she thinks isn't ready for the grit of photography in an actual combat situation. And their final destination is going to be the White House, where an insurgent force fighting against the government are hoping to bring the war to an end.
Yes. Kat, your feelings on Civil War?
I mean, I do think it's wild that Texas and California are the best friends in this scenario. That was that you sort of immediately kind of taken out of it. It's because I caught this at a press screening in the IMAX at Cineworld Leicester Square. And it's a lot of film, particularly in IMAX, and it's a lot of film, not just because of all of the gunshots and explosions and death on screen that you're seeing, but also the fact that we are dangerously, I mean, back then, we were dangerously close to getting into this scenario, and it seems day by day we're getting even closer to this. I mean, we all know that, he who should not be named will probably, change something around so that he can remain in power, and that's terrifying. But again, as with Men, just from a sound design and technical point of view, this film is an onslaught on the senses. I became so desensitized to gunshots in this that on my way home, I got to the tube station. There was some like loud bang, and there was some police, and everybody else was like huddled and like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" I just walked straight past it, and I was halfway down the escalator before I stopped and went, "Oh, I wonder what's happening up there," because I spent 2 hours just basically like listening to gunshots, and yeah, it's a lot of film. I just love Elise Benny. What a chameleon of an actress. I think I saw her in 3 or 4 films last year, and each time I was like, no, it's not her. She's not in Alien Romulus. That's not the same. She's not Priscilla Presley. It can't be. So I think she's a phenomenal young talent, and yeah, it's a good film, but it's also a terrifying film because, as you said
Yes.
at the start, it's a documentary. It's not really a film.
Yeah, I mean, the joke I made on Letterboxd is it's a documentary about what happens when Donald Trump inevitably gets back in, and if
Oh dear.
yeah,
So you jinxed this, Rob. That's what you're saying.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
Rob's fault.
clearly, yeah, it's on me, but on a sort of a pure sort of genre sense, it's a road movie, and I think that's always an easy win for me, especially when it's so multi-generational and
Mhm.
allows you to look at America in a very different sort of lens than maybe we've seen in cinema for a very long time. Usually, this sort of thing would be post-apocalyptic, end of the world sort of stuff. But as they sort of barrel from town to town to place, it has some great set pieces. People always talk about the Jesse Plemons scene, which is very, very intense, especially knowing that it's in the same scene as his wife, which is just odd, sort of.
I think the
Afterwards,
actor
finally.
was the previous actor who was meant to play that character had dropped out for some reason. So Kirsten Dunst was just like, "Well, Jesse's free for a couple of
Yeah,
days. Could get him
yeah.
in. He can."
My husband's one of the best actors of his generation.
My
You could
lovely
use him.
husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just the staging of it as well. It's all shot in this. It's not like a heavily cut sort of cinematography. As far as I understand it, it was one of the first movies shot with this camera, which is basically a gimbal, which is this sort of floating thing which stabilizes everything, and camera in one. And it's just very flowing movie how it sort of gets around and in and out of action.
I think the
That lack of
development.
choppiness that you'd maybe get in another film or another sort of shooting technique really helps it, I think.
I think the development of Alex Garland as a technical director is really palpable when you watch these three movies back to back, because this just does not look like the work of the same guy who made Ex Machina. It's a really
No.
big, really confident,
Wasn't
full of.
this A24's biggest ever movie at the time
It
as well?
was, yeah, yeah,
Whether it
and
still is,
it's
I don't know.
also
It still
it's
is. I
also.
think it's due to be kicked off its pedestal by Marty Supreme this
Oh,
December.
right, the ping
So
pong movie's
the
going
ping
to
pong
outdo
movie.
it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's money well spent. Um,
Go on, Graham. Sorry.
but I think, it's also got big stylistic swings as well. It's not just sort of a big expensive movie that's made to the standards of other big expensive movies, which too many films are. Like watching it again, I was really struck by how saturated the colours are, which is really unusual in a modern digitally shot movie. I loved that bizarre sort of way that the narrow focus lens that they're using just throws out the background, that it turns almost into a prism as it gets towards the edges. There's a lot of really bold stylistic choices here that really work.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Especially the comparison to something as static, really, as Ex Machina.
Yeah.
And this is a much more adventurous filmmaker. He's done a hell of a run at that point.
Mm.
And fair play to him for shrugging off all of that sort of bad press and hate he got off Men, and did another completely non-divisive movie about nothing that could potentially inflame half of his audience with this. So, yeah, kept
I
it
think he does
subtle.
do something quite interesting in that he's keen to not piss off people by taking one particular side. And I think the fact that he does strip a lot of the meat of the film of the context of who's shooting who, it doesn't really
Mm.
it doesn't really give you a lot to be upset about. And I think that in itself pissed off half the people anyway, because it's just like, oh, just be clear about what you're saying. And I think it's ultimately a very left wing film at the end of the day. But I think, yeah, just the way that it alludes to all of these, these events that have happened, like
Mm.
the Antifa massacre, which has happened possibly about 20 years previous to this, because it implies that happened at the beginning of Lee's career, the Kirsten
Oh,
Dunst character.
yes. Yeah.
So I think in in not saying if it was Antifa who were massacred or Antifa who conducted the massacre, I think there's a lot of it rests in your hands, and I
Mm.
think that can work differently from line to line for me. I think you can get a little bit cute on occasion, but like particularly the scene um, where Kaylee Spaney and Kirsten Dunst are meeting in the hotel lobby, and she points out that there's also Lee Miller, the famous war photographer, and it's just like, no, I kind of got that reference already. You didn't need to
Same.
underline it with another 30-second little thing. So I think a lot of his screenplay is as sort of dopey as it is clever in places.
Yes.
I think he's a little too keen to be like, oh, the Portland Maoists. What do you think that's about, eh? And I think you can paint that picture quite well. And I think, like you said as well, Rob, it's not all about it being post-apocalyptic. It's about just all of these spaces that are just like ever so slightly off. I keep thinking about the bit where they're driving through like a Christmas exhibition,
Yeah,
which is just in the middle of a field seemingly, and it appears to be in the spring or the summer. So you're just like, how long has this been? Has this particular
Yeah.
battle been going on between these two people? It's just like, has it been going on for days, months, what? So I think, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that's there for you to pick apart. But then I think there's also some stuff which is a little sort of pat in its vagary, if you know what I mean.
I would agree with that. I think when the film is great, and it is quite often great, it's when it works on that level of pure iconography, of taking things that we associate with, harrowing newsreel from foreign countries and setting it in the middle of archetypally American landscapes. I think when you look at the details of it, and Garland does sometimes want you to look at the details of it, it comes a bit awry. I mean, I bow to no one in my love of Stephen McKinley Henderson as an actor. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful actor. But the idea that this elderly New York Times op-ed columnist is being sent into the middle of the most dangerous battle of the war is just wild. I mean, this is the bit that won't happen in reality. If this does come true, you're not going to see fucking Ezra Klein and Ross do that. Manning the barricades at the White House. That's ridiculous. But, it suffers slightly rewatching it now because I don't know about the rest of you. I know, Simon, we've seen one battle after another. And that is a version of this film that's done by someone who really gets America and American society and American people, and it feels more authentic in that way. But I think there are many very strong things about this. I think I agree that Callie Spaney is incredible in it. I think it might be my favourite Kirsten Dunst performance. I think she's very...
that's young Kirsten Dunst. There's something to say about that, I think.
I know there's a lot of competition, and she had a great start off with Interview with the Vampire, but I just think when I think back to who Kirsten Dunst was when I was growing up, and she was this really sparky sort of child star who grew up to be Spider-Man's girlfriend, if you told me she could play a character who really has seen the worst shit you can imagine, and you'd believe it. As
Well,
much
she
as I
has
liked
been
it.
in a movie done by the Danish
Lars von Trier.
provocateur. Yeah, she has worked with
And then
him.
that
So,
she was at the press conference in which he said that he sympathised with Hitler. She was right there. So yes, indeed.
She's right there, and the gif of her reacting is hilarious.
Yeah, so she has seen stuff.
Yeah,
Big
Worst of the
places.
I mean, she was also a child actor in Hollywood during the 90s, so she has
True
Yeah.
lived a life.
Yeah. Kat, any feelings on Civil War before we wrap that one up?
I just enjoyed I think it's as much as the film looks good and everything, and I'm a sucker for a road movie. It's the performances, it is the interactions between these characters, which are all kind of like caught in snatched moments. I mean, my +1 for the press screening was not impressed with with the irritating intern getting in the way, and would have thrown her quite swiftly out of the car, I think. But that's the inner lawyer in her. So um, so it was an interesting experience watching it next to her, because she was just like, just get rid of her, just get rid of her. She wasn't quite connecting, I don't feel, with the more emotional side of it. But yeah, I think for me on a rewatch, it lost something, and I think that's just purely because I wasn't watching it in an IMAX film, in an IMAX screening. And I think that's obviously something that Simon mentioned earlier with Ex Machina. I feel that Garland's work, all films are made for the cinema, but I feel that Garland's work especially work really well in the cinema. Yeah, I said, Annihilation is my least favorite. It's the only one I didn't see in the cinema. So I'm interested to
Few
see what
have.
an experience in the cinema would have been. I know like the Prince Charles screenings, but I couldn't make it to any of them. So I feel like maybe he is a director that's working so hard for the cinema that then something maybe becomes a little bit lost in translation when you're sat at home.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Because second time watching it, and Prime, which I think it's on now, just didn't pop in the same way, really. Which is fine. A lot of movies don't really translate to the small screen, but
I think that's why I didn't watch Warfare, to end my Alex Garland thing, because that one is so fresh in my mind. I saw it just in May at the Dolby Theatre at my local Odeon, and you thought Civil War was stressful? Oh, yeah, that
so
one,
there's a
a
perfect
horrible
segue. I mean,
experience.
War.
the other two movies, let's talk about them briefly. You segued into Warfare
Yeah.
pretty seamlessly there. So, what, you've all seen Warfare, I assume? I haven't, so.
I haven't.
Yeah.
It was. And so again, it's just his use of sound design. I think I've become a sound designer. Thanks, Alice Garland. Like the first, I don't know, like 40, 50 minutes is near silent. And you just know it's called warfare. You know, at some point something's going to happen. And yeah, when it does, it becomes so loud, so uncomfortably loud. Like one of the characters has to like remove their like headset so that because there's just too much noise in their ears, and you're very much as a viewer going, no, can we turn the volume down, please? It is so intense. It's basically like the opening of the Hurt Locker, but spread out for an entire like 90 minutes, with like one tiny little bit of kind of like light-hearted Eric Pritz music video at the start, which hilariously when I was at Fright Fest I was talking to some Americans and they were like, yeah, it starts off with like this aerobic video, and I'm like, no, that's a piece of British history that you are not understanding, my friends. This is a music video that, you know, was everywhere. And they're like, it's a music video. Like, yeah. And they're like, people were dressed like that in the music video. And it's like, yes. And they're like, oh, okay. We thought it was like an 80s like aerobics thing. It's like, no. So yeah, it's I need to rewatch it, but again, I think I'm kind of reticent because of how good it was to see in the theater. But the Warfare for me is one of my favorites. Whether that's a recency thing, I or just that cinema experience, I don't know yet. But I very much like Warfare.
Yeah, me too.
So,
It's I think currently standing at my third or fourth favorite film of the year. Uh, Definitely close second to Alex Garland for me. But I think it's an interesting kind of B side to Civil War
Mm,
because Alex Garland is basically taking on the role of the war photographer in the depiction of a conflict that he worked very closely with somebody who had actually experienced that, to bring it to life as accurately as possible and to convey that to an audience. And I think a lot of the criticism again is under the same umbrella as the flack that Civil War received, because its sort of lack of context could be read as cowardice in a way, or it could be read as a lack of sort of responsibility for the people who were also suffering in that situation. So, like, I think the film does quite well in acknowledging that this situation did happen in the home of a family who were
mm,
invaded and basically held hostage in the other room while they were under attack from some insurgents, and uh, the fact that they are like a peripheral presence in the film, I think, kind of speaks quite a lot to the blind spots in the American experience, of being in that house and being so concerned about your comrade who's bleeding out on the floor, but you don't actually care about the innocent family who are in the other room, who you've ruined their lives and you're putting them in extreme danger because of uh, what you and your government have done. I think the fact that it just puts that in your hands and lets you sit with it while all the chaos is going on, I think that's quite a powerful statement in its own right. It doesn't kind of underline anything in the way that it doesn't particularly like humanize anybody beyond their own suffering, if you know what I mean. And I think
Hmm.
mm.
it just depends on what level of empathy you're willing to bring to the film at the end of the day. But I found it incredibly involving, whether I wanted to
okay.
be involved in it or not.
Yeah.
It's also very, very, very gross. Like, don't eat with it
Yeah,
because like
hideous film.
there's so much.
Okay.
You know how like when the BBFC thing it'll say like injury detail. Like, yeah, this is just like you're seeing inside of people just a lot.
Oh, well. So stay away from spaghetti then. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ravioli and things like that. That's all good. Graham, Annihilation. Moving to his other one.
Yeah,
We've
maybe I
not
should
talked
have
about.
rewatched this. I have slightly hazy memories of this one because what is time? It's pre-pandemic. The whole thing feels like a weird dream at this point, but maybe that's appropriate. I remember thinking that Annihilation was a really interesting, really ambiguous way to use a bigger budget than he had on Ex Machina. I've spoken to several people who have radically different interpretations of what exactly it's about. I think it's probably at its strongest when it's purely experiential, which I know I'm saying with a lot of his films, but it is basically true. I think the horror movie scenes, particularly the sort of found footage bit on the camcorder, are really viscerally inventive, and the stuff inside the shimmer is really mesmerizing. I like Jeff Vandermeer as an author. I read one of his recent books, Hummingbird Salamander, recently, and it's like, I suppose he's gone on kind of the same journey that we've been talking about with Garland, in that he started writing science fiction about, future climate disasters and wargaming, what that would be like in the future, and something like Hummingbird Salamander is just like, no, it's just a spy novel. There's no need to put any science fiction stuff in it. This shit is all happening right now, and yeah, I think there's loads of really eerie, memorable stuff in it. And Tessa Thompson turns into a tree, if memory serves.
She
So,
does.
He does, yeah.
yeah, that's something.
Simon and Cat, Annihilation feelings.
I mean, like I shared it's just not for me. I don't. I there's just something with it that I just can't connect with.
Fair. I think I'm always willing it to be better than it is because it's basically the same concept as Stalker, which is my favorite film. Um, and I think it's a kind of pretty cool, you know, uh, blockbuster version of Stalker that has some very cool ways of conveying, the disintegration of the human body into something else, and then it's just got some absolute clunker flashback scenes and dialogue. I think there's a very good 100-minute film in there that just needs to be sort of like chipped away at just a little bit, just to keep it. I think Garland is very good. I think weirdly he's better when he's not talking about stuff and he's just actually doing stuff. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I think that's none more evident than it is in Annihilation. But there's lots of things I like about it. I think Jennifer Jason Leigh does a very interesting weirdo performance in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm always drawn to it, and I always have a tremendous amount of fun in certain places. But overall, it's like one of those near brilliant films that's not quite there for me.
Yeah. Usually at this point, I talk about legacy. It's weird with Alex Garland because if I remember correctly, he has took a step back post Warfare, has he not?
Well, I believe he's attached to do the Elden Ring film.
Oh, of course. That makes
So
perfect sense.
there you go. That sort of links to what Graham was saying about writing video games. He's doing a huge video game adaptation. I don't know when that's coming, but I think A24 have got the rights, and
Hmm.
he's attached to direct, and Cally Spaney is attached to star as well.
Okay. Well, we'll still go with that question then, because I assumed he was taking a step back and going back into sort of author mode, but I never knew he was attached to that.
I think he was talking about kind of being like, okay, I've done everything that I want to do like for the meantime, but then he ended up writing this Elden Ring pitch and it landed, and
Yeah.
he's now attached.
It,
So
it, it's funny, isn't it? The same sort of situation as another author turned filmmaker, Zed Craig Zala, where he was like, okay, go back to being an author. We don't
yeah.
really care. You've had your moment.
I can't wait for the new Esker Exala film wherever it comes, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But with Garland, not so much. But assuming he that didn't happen and he was taking that step back, what would his legacy be of these 5 films? Kat?
Yes, he's a filmmaker that doesn't set out to please everybody. I think is the biggest takeaway. Like he's great for social media and people fighting with each other about whether his film is good or not, whether it is intellectual or not. He can get a conversation started.
Absolutely, yeah. Graham?
I think if he stopped directing tomorrow, and I don't think he will, I think he's going to Soderbergh this shit. He's going to retire more times than most people have careers. But I think people will increasingly look back on his films as quite an odd thing in terms of 2010s, 2020s Hollywood, in that he does approach things like an author or an auteur, I guess. Every one of his films is about a big theme in a way that's quite normal for a literary author, but seems quite unusual in modern filmmaking. The pull of a film like Men is he is what Alex Garland thinks about the modern gender debate. Civil War is he is what Alex Garland thinks about American politics. And I think in an age that's as anti-autorist and as dominated by franchises and studios as we are now, that really stands out, and I really value that.
And Simon?
Yeah, I mean, you put that beautifully there, Graham. I think the word that I always keep coming back to is provocative and maybe a little bit irresponsible, but also he doesn't really care. I think you're right as well, Kat, in the way that he just does it very single mindedly, and he approaches everything with his own level of integrity and conviction, and he's got a strength of vision that I think is very valuable in today's landscape, even if you know the rewatches of his films, it just honestly depends on the mood you're in, like how willing you are to go with his ideas. But I think just his commitment to the vision is something that is very very admirable. I think it'll
He is,
also
yeah.
translate into Elden Ring as well. I don't know how, but it will be unfilmed
Yeah.
the Alex Garland.
It's an environmental story in that game, so he'll get something out of that,
Oh,
I'm sure.
perfect.
Yeah. He is the cat among the pigeons in many many degrees. So to wrap up, Graham, where can we find you and the stuff that you do on the internet?
Well, you can search for me on Letterboxd. Just look for Graham Williamson. I'm on Instagram at Graham W Films. Both of these are probably the best way to find out about screenings of Song of the Suburbs and exhibitions I've got on. I am working on a website, and it's entirely possible that one day it'll be finished. But for the time being, that's where I am.
Yes, a cat yourself.
So I am at Gizmo Shikari on Letterboxd and Instagram, and cathughes.bsky.social on Blue Sky. There are links to all of my things there. We are currently on Savage Garden, an Interview the Vampire podcast that I run with my disdainful lawyer friend Naomi. We are just about to start season 2 of the show. I finally got to watch Queen of the Damned, which was as hilarious and beautiful as I hoped it would be. It took her 3 hours to watch an hour and 40-minute film, and it was just voice note after voice note after voice note of her losing her mind, which was a beautiful thing. We are also covering Talamasca, which is a new show in that series. So there are links to that on socials. And then there is obviously Movies with Mummy is somehow still going. Aurora keeps wanting to watch films and talk about them. So we are still chugging along with that. And should anybody be at Fright Fest Halloween, I will be hosting the screenings of Dolly and Affection, which are kind of the two openers for Saturday. And just, because I haven't spoken enough, also, if you like a second sight release, I have an essay in the forthcoming a video essay actually in the forthcoming release of Maxine, where I talk all about Hollywood and that desire to be famous that Maxine has, and basically just end up talking about Starry Eyes, because any opportunity I can talk about that film, I'm going to take it.
Okay, and Simon, yourself.
You can find most of my thoughts on Letterboxd, Simon Ramshaw, which is also my handle on X and Instagram and Blue Sky. I write for The Geek Show, I write for Eastern Kicks, and I have an upcoming article in the November/December issue of Film Stories. So I've interviewed the CEO of the BBFC, David Austin, about the perception of changing age ratings, particularly in horror. So tracing it from video nasties all the way up to 28 years later, and sort of just looking whether that trend of 18s becoming 15s, 15s becoming 12As, whether that is purely legislative or if it's like a sort of more social change. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. And also, if anybody is in London at the beginning of December, please come along to the London International Film Festival. We've got a few things sort of already planned, which I'm not allowed to talk about. But yes, I think
Go on,
anybody
go on,
interested.
go on.
I actually
I'm
can't,
joking.
Rob, because if it
I'm
does
sorry.
fall
I'm
through.
teasing. I'm teasing.
But yes, if anybody's in London, beginning of December, keep an eye out. It's LIFFF. So liff
Yes.
rather than liff.
Yes. And myself, you can find everything across Blue Sky, Letterboxd, and Instagram under Uncut Robcast to keep up with the show and the stuff that I'm up to. But next time on the pod, it's Yorgos Lanthimos. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you are.
I've said it hundreds of times, and just suddenly my mouth can't get itself around his name. But we're doing him next time, and thank you for watching. And
But you said at the start that you were going to tell people about the new format going forwards.
Oh, I did, didn't I? I forgot about that.
That's what
Thank
people
you,
have been
Kat.
waiting for, Rob.
Yes, that was the
They're not going to
biggest
listen to
tease,
us. They
wasn't
just, they fast forward to the end and they're like, "What's happening?"
it? Biggest tease. But yes, we're looking to get actors, directors, people in the film world involved, and we're going to talk about what they're inspired by creatively for a specific project, whatever really they want to do. So one episode a month will be this post New Year, and the other one will be us talking to an actor, director, or whatever we get our hands on about one of their movies and two things that inspired them. Really, so we're going to use. There's lots of sort of sub brands within Uncut. There's actors uncut. There's directors uncut. There's uncut genres. We had a brief dalliance with Uncut from the video aisle, which wasn't to be. And this one will go by Uncut Presents. So that'll be starting in the new year, and look forward to that. And thank you for reminding me, Kat, because it completely vanished out of my brain. But yes, until next time with Georgios Lanthimos, thank you very, very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.